Hello, everybody. I'm David Blackman here with the Energy Impacts podcast, talking today with John Shively, the CEO of the Pebble Partnership, and which is involved with trying to get the Pebble mine in Alaska off of Bristol Bay permitted and up and running. It's been a long battle to get the permits in place for this project, just as so many mining projects are in the United States and other parts of the world. But this is a really critical energy resource, mineral resource for the country, and it's just a pleasure to be talking to you today, John. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, David.
You're up in Anchorage today. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, and then it's a beautiful day.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of rare up there. You know, that they don't get a lot of really beautiful days and weather-wise in Anchorage, but what a wonderful place. Anyway, I appreciate you taking the time. Before we go into our Q&A here, just take a few minutes to introduce yourself to our audience, talk about Pebble Mine a little bit, and tell us, just set the thing up so we can do the Q&A on what's going on with the project.
Okay, great. Thanks. First of all, I need to say that, since some of the things that I'm going to say today are forward-looking, and our owner company, Northern Dynasty, is a traded company that I just advise people not to make any investments based on anything I say today, and do your own independent research. But yeah, I came to Alaska in 1965 as a VISTA volunteer. It was like the Peace Corps, right out of college, and I intended to stay a year. I'm still here. I've had a really wonderful career here, a lot of work in the Alaska Native community, including working for 17 years for one of the Native corporations, NANA, among other things. That we opened up the Red Dog Mine, which is one of the largest zinc lead mines in the world. It's on Native American land. I've done a couple of stints in state government, one as chief of staff to governor, and the other as commissioner of natural resources, and a variety of other things that have kept me entertained. And I've been with Pebble since 2008. I'm a CEO first time until 2013, and then I left and then came back again for what I thought was going to be a short stint in 2020, and I'm still here. Pebble's, it's a well, first of all, I'm not a mining engineer. My degree is in political science. So some people might question why I'm CEO of a mining company.
Well, I think that's very helpful in the role you're in right now.
Well, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Although the political science I studied in the early 60s is a little bit different than the political science that we have today. That's a whole other story. But the main reason I went to work for Pebble was because what I saw in the Red Dog mine up north. That mine has always had well over 50% Native American hire. It changed the whole economics of a very poor region of the state. It brought, allowed a local government to be formed, supports the education system. So at the time that I took the job in 2008, that was my prime interest. And I used to say that was my interest, and I wasn't too worried about the world supply of copper. Well, since then, I've become more concerned about the world supply of copper.
Yeah.
And Pebble, it's the largest undeveloped copper prospect in the world, but we have gold and silver and rhenium and molybdenum and a few other minerals associated with the project. But it's been a long haul. It was first discovered by Caminco, I think, in 1989, and we're still fighting right now. Basically, we were in court suing the EPA and the Corps of Engineers for actions they took against us. We've had some preliminary discussions with the Trump administrations about the project. At this point, we haven't come to an agreement with them, but we are still chatting with them. So,
well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Well, you mentioned copper, of course, and gold. Obviously, the value of gold is obvious. but copper is such a critical mineral for pretty much everything that drives modern human life in today's society. I mean, and of course in electricity and uh, and renewable energy, every kind of energy really, and the military. It's just such a critical metal. You would think the Trump administration, Biden administration, doesn't surprise me. You didn't get the thing up and running during that administration, but you would think this administration would really prioritize it, especially in light of the president's apparently today announcing a 50% import tariff on copper from other countries. So we're going to need to produce a lot more of it here in the U.S. Talk about how important that particular metal is for pretty much everything we do in the United States these days.
Yeah, I mean, well, if it's electric, it's copper, and that's of course its main use. But other things, I mean, that people don't know about, it's antimicrobial. So if you put it like on door handles and things like that in a hospital, it basically is a safety mineral. And of course, I think everybody knows that right now, our need for electricity is increasing exponentially, mainly as a result of things like data centers, AI, all of that, and there's no slowing that down. Green energy, whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, I mean, it is a part of our national energy sources, and if you use wind or solar, you're going to use a lot more copper than if you did nuclear or particularly gas turbines.
Yeah.
So all of that leads to what you described, I think, very accurately in an article you did for Forbes in July of an upcoming shortage, and that's S&P Global. Daniel Yergin has done a study of that, and as have many others. And there's no question we're heading, towards the end of this decade to a major copper deficit.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that really, I don't think our country can allow us as the United States anyway to have a copper deficit. If you don't have the copper to power the country, then nothing can move forward, and that of course would just kill the economy. So it's just so vital to everything. I really hope the administration gets moving on that. And then, of course, the molybdenum. I have a hard time pronouncing the word. Sorry.
Everybody does.
Yeah, and rhenium. I guess rhenium is not technically classified as a rare earth, but certainly they're in that family. And again, rare earths are just so crucial to national security, the military, and all the weapon systems those magnets are used in. I mean, talk about the magnitude of the potential resource of those two minerals in this mine.
Well, I mean, we have, basically billions of pounds of copper. This is a prospect that, if it's mined, probably would last 70 to 100 years, depending on the rate of mining. For what we know now of the resource, our initial mining permitting is for 20 years, because it's no sense trying to figure out what technology is going to be 50 years from now. But so, we have over 50 billion pounds of copper. We have about 2.4 billion pounds of rhenium. And so all the minerals are in that magnitude if you look at the life of the mine.
Well, so one of the issues surrounding minerals of all kinds in the modern world, in the 80s, we in the Western world decided to essentially get out of the mining business and cede it all to China. And the processing of these metals also has been ceded to China for the most part. China dominates the supply chains. Is that also true for rhenium and molybdenum? Yeah, anyway, the other one that I can't pronounce as it is for the rest of the rare earth metals.
Yeah, we import most of our rhenium. I'm not actually positive from where, and I know molybdenum, I just don't know. But Uh, and you've hit on something that I think is really important here, and it's being picked up a little more now by the conventional press and I think in the administration. But really, there are three parts to mining, as you know. The first thing is you go in and blow up the rock.
Yeah.
And then you process the rock into something called concentrate. Well, for us, the rock contains less than 1% mineralization. The concentrate would be around 25–26% mineralization. That then has to be made into metal. So the first two steps take place where the mineral is. But processing, basically, as you point out, we pretty much have ceded to China. We haven't built a new copper processing plant in this country since, I think, the 60s or something. We've shut some down, but we haven't built any. And so right now, China processes over 50% of the metal in the world. And that's something that the administration's got to pay some attention to. We're looking at it. There's mostly the processing has been smelting, which requires a lot of energy and has its own environmental issues. But there's some technology we call hydromet technology that's a different kind of technology, more of a leaching technology that we think is environmentally more sensitive. And we're looking at how we might add something like that to our project, because right now, if you mine copper, you pretty much have to send it somewhere else in the world to be processed. And as I said, over half of that is over half of that is in China.
Yeah. China's, one of the things we see with China is anytime another country is attempting to impede on its dominance in these supply chains, it becomes very aggressive, even to the point of crashing global market for the price of certain materials, lithium and other materials in recent years in order to protect its market share. Has that played any role in the struggle to get Pebble Mine up and running over all these years? Have we seen China take any actions to try to slow the government down in that process?
Well, if one believes in conspiracies, as some people do, you could say that China is very enthusiastic about the role that environmental groups play in trying to stop mines like Pebble. And, whether they do support that or not, I know at least one U.S. congressman who's a very rational guy who really thinks that they do, who also has mining in his district. But yeah, first of all, China some time ago saw what was coming. And, they think years ahead.
Yeah.
In this country, our financial people think a quarter up ahead. And so it's different. And so they now have the ability also because, they're not a total capitalistic society. They are partial, but the government is willing to lose money in order to keep market share. So as you said, as they've done with lithium, as they've done from time to time with rare earths, something in the U.S. will start up, they'll flood the market, drop the price, and make the project uneconomic. I think it would be difficult to do that in copper, but for something like rhenium, it would be fairly easy. They're very interested in becoming the world's dominant country, and
sure,
we have underestimated that, I believe, for some time in this country.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about that. And of course, we literally created the monster in the 70s and 80s by, basically ceding all of these industrial processes to China to become dominant in. And so it's really a kind of a problem of our own creation here in the United States. One of the big issues Pebble Mine has faced is this issue related to protection of the salmon in Bristol Bay, which has been a source of ongoing controversy for many years now. Talk about where you are in that process of convincing the EPA and Corps of Engineers and everybody that the procedures, the plans you have in place now to accomplish that, ought to be honored and merit the issuing of the permits to move ahead.
Yeah, just maybe a little background first. When I was first recruited to become CEO, there were two partners, Anglo American and Northern Dynasty. And when I was interviewed by them, I told both of them at the time, if they were looking for a cheerleader for the project, then I was the wrong person because I didn't know enough about it to know whether or not it could be done environmentally responsibly. And I spent, as I mentioned earlier, a fair amount of my career in the Native community, often working on subsistence-related issues. So I know how important fish are to people. And if I didn't believe that we could do this thing without protecting fishing, I would have left years ago. And we've done over $200 million worth of science and studying, fish, water, air. That resulted in an environmental impact statement that basically says we can do this project without harming the fish. On the other hand, our opposition says, repeatedly, we are going to destroy the fishery. Well, we couldn't destroy the fishery if it was our goal, because there are 8 river systems in Bristol Bay. We are in 2 of them. So, but, they have the bumper sticker and we have the very difficult scientific explanation. We have, worked on tailings impoundment facility that is really pretty much a unique design. One of the problems that people have had with tailings failures is that tailings are often fairly liquefied. Our system has the water drain out from the tailings. It drains out the bottom. We take that, we process the water. We have a very complex water treatment plant to put water back in. We actually can improve fish habitat by when and how much water we release out into the environment. So, I'm very comfortable about that. I mean, that's why we do the process. And, we were turned down by the Corps of Engineers for our permit, but we appealed that decision.
Yeah.
And they have an internal appeal process. We won our appeal, and it was remanded back to the Corps to relook at the issues, particularly the fish issues and the tailings issue, which they neglected to do. And then when the Biden EPA came out and vetoed the project, they said, well, we don't have to work on this anymore. So,
wow. So in the court, are you at the district court level, appellate court level?
District court.
District court, and that would be in the Ninth Circuit jurisdiction. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Which, of course, the makeup of that court was changed very significantly during the Trump administration. For years and years, it was just an automatic veto of Alaska on major projects, but that's changed somewhat. I know Biden got a couple of appointees in there while he was president. So, that's, you have a long way to go through the court system. I mean, so the Trump administration, and I just interviewed the chairman of their permitting council last week, Emily Dominich, who's just one of the most energetic people I've ever talked to, really a dynamo. They are really focused on streamlining these permitting processes. And of course, the environmental impact statements are one of their major focus areas at Interior with Doug Burgum. So I wonder if if their efforts, number one, increase your level of optimism about ultimately getting this thing done, and number two, have you had any opportunity to have input into what they ought to be kind of focusing on related to mining?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think the answer to both questions is yes. I mean, anything, we need to get back into the permitting system. And we need to get back to the Corps. They need to look at what they did. And anything that's done to sort of, make that a more user-friendly process would be helpful to us. And the other issue is for us, the reason the Corps and EPA are involved is because of wetlands and because of the Clean Water Act. And the second decision has substantially reduced the amount of wetlands that we impact, which I think also is something that has to be looked at. So Timelines. The one area that's very difficult, and I think that, it's going to take Congress, and they've fiddled with permit legislation, but I don't see much happening right now with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But it's the litigation side of it. I mean, it can sort of fix some of the internal, how many pages, how fast, who's involved, holding agencies responsible for timelines. I mean, this is the one thing that if I were king, that, I would say, these are the timelines, either comment or you don't. You don't come and
Right.
say, we're not ready and give us another 60 days. I think that, but, as Daniel Yergin has pointed out, one of the big problems with permitting anything in this country is the judicial system.
Yes.
There was a big win recently in the Supreme Court on NEPA, where they basically said, look, NEPA was never designed to look at every single possible issue and problem. And basically there's a 9-0 decision that what goes on with the National Environmental Protection Act and EIS has been going way beyond what Congress's intent was. So I think that'll be helpful too. Even Democrats are somewhat interested in this because, as John Podesta said, we got so good at stopping things, we can't get anything done what we want to get done, like wind and solar. So.
Right. No, and that's the thing. So many people don't understand that. I mean, these same permitting issues can impact any kind of energy project or any kind of other major project. That anything that turns dirt, basically, to get done, is just kind of a nightmare to get through the process. And it's been that way for a long, long time. So it's kind of an intractable problem. And the litigation piece of it, when I interviewed Dan Yergin, you mentioned him a minute ago, a couple of weeks ago, I didn't realize quite how long these timelines are. He said the average permitting time for a major mine in the United States is now extended to 29 years. That's the average time it takes to get the thing from initial concept to initial operations, which is just insane. I mean, we can't, China wants to dominate. Well, if we can't fix that problem, they will dominate, and it's inevitable because we just can't get anything done, right? I mean, how are we ever going to be able to compete? It's just crazy.
Well, there are some projects out there like ours, Resolution in Arizona, the project in Minnesota, that, are within, I would say, 4 or 5 years, if you get the permits, don't get tied up in court forever. But, to build a project our size, and I think what Jurgen said was from discovery to first production. Well,
First production, that's right.
You've got the construction timeline in there, and for the big mines, that's 4 or 5, maybe 4 or 5 years. Even once you get through the permitting, once you get through the litigation.
Have y'all been able to build any infrastructure at the site yet, or is it?
No.
Yeah.
No, in fact, we made a decision early on not to. We didn't even put in an airfield. We've done everything by helicopter to minimize the environmental footprint at the site.
Well, it's just such a hard problem, and one of the things I talked with Emily about was the fact that almost all of these delays that we see in trying to get these big projects done emanate out of our major environmental federal laws, the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Endangered Species Act, et cetera, et cetera. And these are laws that have had bipartisan support over the years. Most of them were signed by Republican presidents, with Democratic Congresses having passed them. And so anytime you talk about modifying or trying to streamline, you're just automatically opened up to all of these negative messaging efforts by these conflict groups that make their money from perpetuating these controversies. And so it's really one of the hardest things the government can try to get done. And I have to agree with you. It's hard to see how. I know there's an effort in both the House and the Senate now to try to develop a permitting bill, but trying to get 60 votes in the Senate for one is just almost impossible. And so it's just a really difficult thing. What haven't I asked you in this interview that you think I should have asked? I always like to ask that question as we're getting towards the end.
Yeah, well, I don't like to get into world peace. That's too complicated.
No, that's yeah.
So, well, maybe a little bit, it's not just Pebble in Alaska. I mean, Alaska is an unbelievable place. It's way underexplored. And, we're not the only mine that the Biden administration tried to stop. There's a mine called the Ambler District up in the Ambler District, which is in the region where I worked when we did the Red Log mine, where they stopped a road that Congress said had to be built or could be built.
Right.
Well, not had to be built. And there have been several other mining projects, and Alaska is way underexplored for minerals. I mean, we're well known for our oil, and there's no question that what the Trump administration has done in terms of particularly the National Petroleum Reserve, opening that back up, it's an incredible resource, and we're going to need oil and gas. I mean, it's just the way it is. And so, you can look at Alaska from my perspective and say, I'm 82, so I don't know how much longer I got to hang around and look at all of this. But, within a decade or two, this place could be really humming, both with oil and gas development and with mineral development. On the other hand, it also could be an economic desert because we're a natural resource state. I mean, we're not going to have a Tesla factory, and we're not going to make chips here. Might put some data centers here. We have because of the energy resources. But
sure.
So that's my take. I mean, it's a fabulous place, and of course, it's known for its tourism. The other thing that people don't understand about Alaska is how big it is. I mean,
oh my God,
it's a fifth the size of the whole rest of the United States. Half the states, if you draw a line right down the middle, the western half of the state you can't get to by road at all. Right. You draw an east-west line across the middle of the state near Fairbanks. There's one road that goes north to the oil field. So, we lack infrastructure, but we definitely do not lack resources.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing that everyone who watches this podcast really needs to understand is, we can't. We're going to have all of these minerals, all of that oil. Ultimately, it's all going to have to be recovered for our country to remain prosperous and growing. And Pebble Mine is a big piece of that puzzle. And John, I can't thank you enough for being on here and taking time out of your day. I know you're very busy, and I wish you the best of luck going forward and getting this thing done.
Well, thank you, David. I really appreciate you giving me the time. As you can tell, I'm very excited about it. I mean, the opportunity is great. So I'm always happy to talk about it. So thank you.
So thank you. And thanks everyone for watching. And I'll be back again next week with another episode of Energy Impacts. And that's all for now.